Yeah.
You and I are like allies on a number of issues, crazy stuff. Look, Trump woke me up. I'm one of the most outspoken never Trumpers out there. He's utterly undemocratic. He's an authoritarian. He's a threat to our democracy. End of story. That trumps every other issue to me. I think the Republican Party is a MAGA party. There is a real embrace of authoritarianism on the right. It's always been there. I heard it back in my Tea Party days. It's always been part of the Republican Party. The right in this country is much more open to an authoritarian.
Got a great interview for you guys now. Joe Walsh, former Tea Party Republican. He was elected to Congress in Illinois. He was considered one of the most extreme right-wingers in Congress back in the day. These days, he's considered center or center-right. So we want to find out what happened. And he's also, by the way, the host of The Social Contract. That's a podcast and Substack as well. So The Social Contract with Joe Walsh. Joe, so tell us what happened.
Hey, Chang, good to be with you. Hey, isn't it funny, my friend, how all these labels and alliances and where you are and who you stand with politically has changed so much these days? Yeah. You and I are like allies on a number of issues, crazy stuff. Look, Trump woke me up. I'm one of the most outspoken never Trumpers out there. He's utterly undemocratic. He's an authoritarian. He's a threat to our democracy. End of story. That trumps every other issue to me.
Yeah, and so let's talk just a little bit, because I really want to talk to you about the current state of conservatives and what that means and what's going to happen to the Republican Party after Trump. But let's talk a little bit about the past, which we touched on before in earlier interviews, but it's relevant here. So when did you start to think, wait a minute, is my party on the right track here, or has something gone very awry here, very wrong?
Cenk, right after he got elected in 2016, I voted for him. I voted for him, and not because I really liked him, but I'm a disruptor. I'm sick of our broken political system. I'm sick of both political parties. So I thought Washington needed disruption. End of story. That's why I voted for Trump. But then when he got elected, and I'm on conservative talk radio every day, and I'm paying attention to him every single day, I eventually knew that this guy is a disruptor. He's a populist, but he's an evil populist. He's a bad populist. So it didn't take me long to say, I can't support this. Cenk, I'm a populist at heart. I still think our system needs disruption. He's just an evil disruptor.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's why the political spectrum right now is such a jumble, and it's so hard for people to wrap their heads around all the change that's happening. Because in the old days, I don't think it was right, but the mainstream media would have said you were extreme right and I was extreme left. In reality, I don't think either one of us was nearly as extreme, obviously, as they thought we were. But what they were saying, Joe, in my opinion, is you guys are outsiders. You guys are populists. You guys are anti-establishment. So we're gonna call you extreme, right? But in reality, that's not extreme. That's the middle of the country. And Trump was smart enough to sense that. And that's why, like, he's a legendary con man, right? And this was his greatest con of all, to pretend to be a populist. That's my opinion on it. But as you started seeing that, it's easy for me to say I'm on the left, I'm against Trump. As you started seeing that on the right, and you remember the first time you started saying it and what reaction you got back? And were you worried at the time?
Oh, absolutely. Because again, you and I are similar. We're both populists. We're both anti-establishment. You were too anti-establishment for MSNBC. I was way too anti-establishment for Fox. But in my position, coming from the right, to even begin to publicly criticize Trump, man, you risk ending everything. I was a syndicated conservative talk radio host. I was a Rush Limbaugh back in the day. To say that you oppose Trump means your radio career ends, no more appearances on Fox News, and more importantly, Cenk, I would have loved to have gone back to Congress. The minute as a Republican you publicly oppose Trump, your political career ends. So I tell people I took a blowtorch to my career, but I couldn't have slept at night if I hadn't.
Yeah, look, I think it speaks really well of you. And by the way, I share the same exact number one problem with Trump. I think there's tons of problems with Trump, but the number one problem is you got to uphold the Constitution. It's not optional.
Yeah.
And I mean, he just did it again. Kristen Welker asked him, and he says, I don't know on whether he has to uphold the Constitution. No, we know. That's not a hard question. It's a hard yes, I will uphold the Constitution. And he doesn't do it, and it's maddening. So I want to ask you, though, a question about that, Joe. Because, first term, my sense was unbreakable cult. Couple of brave folks like you come out, and then you guys are steamrolled, right? My sense these days is it's a little bit different, right? So does that still exist? For sure. But I feel like there's a new contingent of independents like Rogan, et cetera, that are beginning to go, no, I could say that what he did there is wrong. And now you got folks like Laura Loomer and Pam Bondi fighting. And then Alex Jones criticizing him, Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson criticizing him on kidnapping people off the streets because they criticize Israel, et cetera. So do you sense anything different since you're still a conservative, or no?
So I publicly came out against him 7 years, Cenk. And when I did, I looked behind me and nobody was there. I was all alone. And back then, every single one of my former Republican colleagues in the House and Senate would call me privately and say, I agree with everything you say about Trump, Joe, but I can't say that publicly. Now, I don't get those calls from elected Republicans. Trump's victory in November, Cenk, I believe, solidified his hold on the party. I think the Republican Party is a MAGA party. 7-8 years ago, it was fringe. Now the Republican Party is MAGA. I think you're right in that some independent media voices are beginning to pick at him on a few issues. But no, I still think lock, stock, and barrel, this is his party, and it will be his party even if he doesn't try to run in 28.
Yeah, but that's an important distinction. That's right. So I'll see Senator Kennedy or Rand Paul objecting to Trump on tariffs, but and Massey's got principles, and so Massey's an exception, right? Rand Paul's half an exception, but guys like Kennedy and others are opposing him because their corporate donors are against the tariffs. So they're a little conflicted on that. I don't like, and this is a long way of agreeing with you about them. I think that's kind of an exception to the rule, but they're still mainly on Trump's side. I think the media is a little different. I think the media is much more of a mess, and in a good way. Do they hold with Trump? Does a Charlie Kirk hold with Trump 95, 98% of the time? Yeah, of course, right? But you wouldn't even had 2% or 5% in the past, and I'm seeing that. But you haven't seen that much yet?
No, I still haven't, and I still talk to some of those folks in the right-wing media privately, and the same rule holds. If Charlie Kirk or Hannity or any of these right-wing media guys came out and really criticized him strongly, they would be done. I think that still holds, and I think that's gonna hold these next 4 years no matter what. Cenk, this tariff thing is a weird one though, because that's one issue where his cult-like base, and I hear from them every day, if his cult-like base really begins to feel economic pain, then I don't know what the media, the right-wing media guys are gonna do. And I don't know what, frankly, some Republican elected officials will do.
Yeah, see, I'm a little bit more hopeful than you, which is kind of funny and ironic about this splintering within his base. And I think his base is larger than just hardcore MAGA, right? I mean,
yes.
His base grew over this time. He won the popular vote, right? And so, but I like that, you've got that perspective and you're closer to it. So I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, so now what happens to the Republican Party next? You're saying it stays MAGA. Let's assume that Trump doesn't run. Is there any chance that it goes in a actual populist direction? Like Hawley's half real populist. Or no, we go to JD Vance and Peter Thiel's still in charge and they're still doing $5 trillion tax cuts for the rich and et cetera. And Elon Musk is still in charge. What's your sense of which direction it goes?
Well, it's really interesting, Cenk. I mean, there are reports today that privately Trump has been beating the speaker, Mike Johnson, over the head to raise taxes on the super wealthy. So there's a real split in the party. But look, you and I are both populists. I've always considered myself to be a libertarian populist. That may be oxymoronic, but this Republican Party is a big government, nationalistic, populist party. The animating force in the party, Josh Hawley, is just one guy, but most elected officials still in the House, Republican, they want to use a big active government to advance their right-wing causes. So I think that's going to be the prevailing kind of philosophy in the party, even after Trump's gone.
See, but there's this interesting, I don't know if it's irony or hypocrisy or just two factors at the same time within the Republican Party. Because I don't think the Uniparty went anywhere. I think the establishment Republicans are still establishment. I think that they still want giant tax cuts, mainly for corporations, because those are their donors and they serve the donor class. It's just that they happen to be aligned with Trump on that. They're not aligned with him on the tariffs. The donors don't want the tariffs, but the donors do want the tax cuts. And so I think that they're playing along with Trump because they have to. And that they've never really changed though. They're still working for their donors. So the reason I bring that up, Joe, is because the party's MAGA, but it's all their elected officials, or almost all of them, are still establishment. So how does those two things coincide?
I'd only quibble with you when you say all of their members are still establishment. I think it's closer to half and half. And I will say this, Cenk. The true believer MAGA crazies in the caucus is much greater than it was 6 or 7 years ago. I mean, most of the House Republican caucus is MAGA, and a bigger percentage of the Senate Republican caucus is MAGA. But you're right, there are still plenty of establishment O-line Republicans in both the Senate and the House. But Cenk, the base is not establishment. If Trump's gone tomorrow, or if Trump doesn't run in 28, who's going to be the nominee? JD Vance, Tucker Carlson, Donald Jr. It's still going to be kind of a MAGA voice, and the establishment is just going to have to suck it up and be quiet again, because that's where their voters are.
Yeah, well, their voters are definitely there. So. But again, that's their base. In the primaries, their voters are very MAGA, and there's nothing they can do about it. Is there, okay, now I'm gonna ask a crazy question. Is there any chance that MAGA goes in a positive direction? Here's what I mean by that. So okay, now I'm not gonna agree with them on a whole host of policies. I don't mean that, right? But their original animating thing was drain the swamp. They were anti-corruption. Yeah. So now Trump wasn't anti-corruption, but the voters were. And when Trump said drain the swamp, they loved it, and that was part of his con, right? Now Trump is so authoritarian. He said after he lost in 2020, we should terminate the Constitution. He's never cared about the Constitution. He always wanted me, power, right? But the base, if you ask MAGA, they'd say, oh, we love the Constitution. They don't know that Trump is shredding it. I don't think they know. They've gotten themselves to believe they're not, right? So is it possible for MAGA to be right, very right wing, and that's what I mean, like they're not gonna agree with me, but very right wing, but not be against the Constitution, not be for authoritarian rule, and take that toxic stuff out?
Cenk, I'm gonna say no. I appreciate your hope, but I say this coming from the right. The left has a lot of issues, but I've always known this. There is a real embrace of authoritarianism on the right. It's always been there. I heard it back in my Tea Party days. It's always been part of the Republican Party. The right in this country is much more open to an authoritarian. And Cenk, again, I want to say this. Because I come from the base, I still engage with these people every day, and they tell me every day they want an authoritarian to rule them because they want an authoritarian to bring them back the America, 1954, blah, 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 blah. So I think that authoritarianism is going to be with us on the right for a long, long time.
Okay, that is nice and depressing. No, but it's a real honest answer, and everybody's got a different perspective, and you're in the trenches on this, so I appreciate your perspective. I think it really informs how I think about it going forward as well. So now, how about conservatives? Because Republicans, conservatives, MAGA, they're all slightly different things. These days, what does it mean to be a conservative?
Damn you, that is such a good question. And I'm gonna first say I don't know, because I think it's kind of been put on the shelf. I don't think it's really part of the Republican calculus right now. Right now, the party is nationalistic. The party is build a wall around America and keep brown and black people out. The party is, we want America to be a Christian theocracy, and the party is authoritarianism. So when you ask me today, what is conservative? I mean, we see little shoots every now and then, like Rand Paul. I'm against tariffs, but what I always thought it was, Cenk, was free markets, freedom, welcome immigrants from all over the world. Strong defense. I just don't see that anywhere right now.
Yeah, so look, the welcoming immigrants, that ship sailed a while back on Republicans.
Well, yeah, no, Cenk, that's fair. There's always been a split. There's been part of kind of the free market, the Ronald Reagan shining city on the hill aspect of the Republican Party that I always liked. I agree, there's always been the darker side.
Yeah, so free markets. So does let me put it this way. There was a story out I'm obsessed with last week on Golden Dome, or 2 weeks ago. And so that's the equivalent of Iron Dome that Israel has, but it's a totally undoable giant project that's gonna cost us hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars. And right now, apparently the leading company for it is SpaceX. Okay, I mean, what out of like, I think 180 people that applied, does this look like free market? Not being able to negotiate drug prices, does this look like free market? Like, is there gonna come a point when people on the right go, wait a minute, none of this looks like the free market. It just seems like the donor class is winning, and that's all that's happening. No matter if it's Democrat, Republican, nothing matters. It has nothing to do with free markets. It's just total BS. The donors are in charge. Are they ever gonna wake up to that?
They won't on the right. You and I, Cenk, and you're not on the right. You and I will lock arms and fight the oligarchy and this crony capitalism, which is what this all is right now. Again, you're right. You believe in markets. You believe in free markets. You should be irate with what's been going on with Musk and everything else under Trump. But no, the right's not going to wake up to this. It'll be a populist movement, I think, on the left, which we see Bernie and AOC out there railing against.
Yeah. All right. By the way, I mean, look, in a sense, I hope you're wrong for the betterment of the country, but in a sense, I hope you're right, because if the Republicans continue to be, lie about supporting free markets and just give everything to the donor class, yeah, then my side will win. The populist left will win. And the populist left has always said we're actually gonna deliver for the average guy. We've always been against corruption. We've always against money in politics, always against the wars. So I think this country can't wait to come in our direction. They just don't know it, because there's not, because look at the media. The media is like, loves the establishment, so they're never gonna be in favor of the populist left, the mainstream media. And then right-wing media has started to dominate online, and they're never gonna say that the populist lefters are the true populists. So I think a lot of people are misled, but the minute you break that spell, it feels like the country's gonna come to us, doesn't it?
There is a great opportunity right now, you nailed it, my friend, for the populist left, completely. The Democratic Party, I worry, is not going to take advantage of this great opportunity. And I don't know then how the populist left deals with that.
Yeah. Well, I started Rebellion.
Another party, Cenk, another party.
No. I started Rebellion PAC along with co-founders and stuff. And then we got some great candidates for O'Connor, Richard Ojeda, more coming out. Real populist, basically running on real populism. And so my thesis is the Democratic Party leadership is super weak. Why bother starting a new party? Why don't you just take over the Democratic Party like Trump took over the Republican Party, but bring it back to its roots, what the Democratic Party was supposed to be about? FDR, JFK, LBJ, Social Security, Medicare, actually delivering for people. People love those programs, right? And so I think that's the way to go. But for you, Joe, you're in a different situation, right? So for me, that's easy. Populist left checks off all the boxes, right? The positions are super popular. It's on the left. It's populist. I love it, right? You're in no man's land, and so and so what do you do when a lot of your opinions are still on the right, and you're a little bit more libertarian now, and you're certainly populist, but the populists in your party have totally gone awry, right? And they're not actually doing populism. So what do you do? I really don't know the answer to that. In terms of which, do you try to support a party? Do you not support any parties? What do you push people to do when on the show, et cetera?
I don't have a home. People like me don't have a political home. People like me who've gotten elected right now can't run because we don't have a home. Cenk, I'm older than you. The Republican Party's never going to change in my lifetime, so that's not an option. I'm all about issues. I've always been all about issues, so I can stay out here in the wilderness and keep advancing issues. And by the way, going at MAGA and my former party, because as messed up as the Democratic Party is, as you know better than anybody, the Republican Party right now is still the much greater danger. So as long as the Republican Party's a MAGA party, I lock arms with Democrats to help defeat MAGA. But otherwise, I'm homeless. I've thought about, Cenk, becoming a conservative Democrat, but I don't know if the Democratic Party's that big of a tent. So I don't know. Yeah,
it's interesting. There's a lot of people who I think felt the same way about the Democratic Party, and they're like, I just can't. They're so establishment. I just can't do it anymore, right?
Yeah.
And then they got false hope with Trump, went over and voted for him. I think all those guys are already deeply disappointed and are going to get even more disappointed. So there's this like significant group of independents. They just don't know where to go.
And by the way, Cenk, kudos to you, because you have been in a sense your consistent voice in your wilderness for a long time. But now, my friend, one of the leaders of the populist left, this thing's coming your way, and it's a great opportunity for you, and you've been there for a long time. You deserve it, brother.
Well, thank you for saying that, Joe. I really appreciate it. But look, the more important thing is for everyone out there, whether they're hosts, they're voters, they're politicians, et cetera, it takes courage to do what Joe did and be honest. And he got, took a lot of hits in his career, et cetera. We certainly took hits for criticizing Democrats. But then when you're honest and you're principled, over the long run, people believe you, right? The rest of a lot of the left-wing shows said, oh no, Joe Biden's young and dynamic, but you lose credibility when you say that. Oh, Democrats are angels, they don't care about donor money. No, you lose credibility when you say that because it isn't true, right? And so the same for you goes in spades, brother. I mean, you really took a risk to burn down all your bridges on the Republican side to say the right thing because you care about the Constitution and you care about America. So I appreciate that. Thank you for doing that, Joe.
Thank you, my friend, and it's always good to speak with you, brother.
Everybody check out The Social Contract with Joe Walsh. As you can tell, brave truth teller, and he's gonna give it to you straight, and that's the most important thing there is. Agree or disagree, nothing better than honesty. Thank you for joining us, Joe.
Thanks, Cenk.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.